The Saibol incidents, Kuki-dominated territory, the High Court petition for Kuki women injured in CRPF firing, depth analysis. On September 22, 2025, the Manipur High Court made a significant, though cautious move. Justice Gunshwar Sharma asked both the union and state governments to respond to a petition that seeks compensation for Kuki women who were allegedly injured when Central Reserve Police Force, CRPF, personnel opened fire on protesters. The incident in question took place last year in Saibol village, where, according to the petition, even rocket launchers were deployed against unarmed women. The petition was brought by the Kuki Women Organization for Human Rights Trust, a body that has consistently raised issues of violence against Kuki women during the ongoing conflict in Manipur. Their claim is stark, that women protesters were met not with negotiation or restraint, but with military-grade weaponry. If true, the use of such force would not only be disproportionate, but a blatant violation of both national law and international humanitarian standards. The bar and bench report underlines that the court has not yet issued notice for a criminal probe or for the registration of a case against the personnel involved, but it has set a process in motion by asking for counter-affidavits from the authorities' source, bar and bench. This legal petition must be understood in the larger frame of how violence has unfolded in Manipur since May 2023. For over 2 years now, the state has been caught in one of the most severe ethnic and political crises in its history. Thousands have been displaced, hundreds killed, and entire villages uprooted. The conflict has often placed security forces, both state police and central paramilitary, at the center of controversy. The role of the CRPF, Assam Rifles, and other units has been criticized by civil society and human rights groups who allege bias, excessive force, and targeted actions against Kuki communities. The Saibol protest incident, now at the heart of this case, is emblematic of this wider mistrust. The petition asserts that Kuki women were peacefully protesting when they were attacked with weapons that should never be used against civilians. Rocket launchers, usually associated with war fronts, are alleged to have been turned against women in a village setting. While the government representatives deny personal culpability of CRPF officers and have urged the court not to demoralize the forces, the petitioners argue that accountability cannot be sacrificed for morale. This tension between state security narratives and community experiences of violence lies at the heart of the Manipur crisis. The High Court's interim order reflects this tension. Justice Sharma allowed the governments to file their counter-affidavits within 3 weeks, followed by rejoinders if necessary, before the next hearing on October 17th. Crucially, the court did not yet issue notice against the CRPF personnel named in their personal capacity. Advocate General Lenin Hijam, representing the state, opposed such notice, warning it would hurt the morale of security forces. Central Government Counsel B.R. Sharma echoed this, suggesting that only official respondents should be called to contest. Senior Advocate Anand Grover, appearing for the Kuki Women Organization, conceded to let the court decide appropriately on this point. In the end, the judge deferred notice to the CRPF individuals. For now, the case is focused on government responsibility rather than individual liability source, bar and bench. This deferment is important. It shows the court's caution in dealing with security forces during an ongoing insurgency-like crisis. On one hand, the judiciary is acknowledging the grievance and allowing the petition process to move forward. On the other, it is avoiding a direct clash with the central forces by not summoning their officers individually at this stage. Critics might call this hesitation, but it also reflects the sensitive balance courts often strike in conflict zones, where state authority, military morale, and citizen rights are in constant collision. The legal team composition also demonstrates the seriousness with which the petitioners are pursuing justice. Senior Advocate Anand Grover, known nationally for human rights litigation, leads the case. He is supported by Triumvir Law, with advocates Ajay Kumar, Anubhav Sarkar, and Arjun Krishnan, as well as local lawyers Chamnamai Gonmiai and Kame Lungchuathalia from the chambers of Advocate Worthing Soro. On the government side, Advocate General Lenin Hijam with S. Naranjan represents the state, while B.R. Sharma appears for the CRPF source, bar and bench. This lineup underscores that the case is not a symbolic filing but a carefully prepared legal battle involving some of the country's most experienced litigators. Beyond the immediate courtroom, this case has wider implications. First, it directly confronts the question of state accountability for violence against women in conflict zones. The use of excessively force on unarmed protesters, particularly women, is a recurring theme in Manipur's recent history. From house raids to alleged sexual assaults, Kuki women have often borne the brunt of the violence. Yet legal redress has been scarce. By moving to the High Court, the Kuki Women Organization signals a shift from street protests to institutional legal channels. Second, the petition raises the issue of militarization of civilian space. If rocket launchers were indeed used against protesters, it reflects a mindset where border villages are treated not as communities, but as battlefields. Such actions deepen the alienation of Kuki-Zo people who already feel besieged after the ethnic cleansing of 2023. They confirm the perception that the state does not see Kuki citizens as equal stakeholders, but as security threats. The legal process may help test these claims in open court, though proving them will be difficult. Third, this petition could potentially become a precedent. If the court eventually orders compensation, or even acknowledges wrongful use of force, it will set a marker in Indian jurisprudence. Cases of paramilitary excess are rarely adjudicated successfully, especially in insurgency-affected areas. A ruling in favor of the petitioners could encourage other communities to seek remedies through law rather than remain trapped in cycles of violence and impunity. However, obstacles remain. The state and center are likely to argue that security actions were proportionate, necessary, or provoked. They will seek to portray the protest not as peaceful, but as part of a larger militant mobilization. They may also invoke the doctrine of sovereign immunity, claiming that state actions during conflict cannot be subjected to ordinary civil claims. The deferral of notice to CRPF officers already signals judicial caution in piercing institutional shields. Whether the court will eventually demand accountability from individuals remains uncertain. For Kuki communities, the case is not just about compensation, but about recognition. To have their suffering acknowledged by the judiciary would be a step toward healing in a landscape where official narratives often erase their pain. The symbolic weight of the petition may even exceed its financial stakes. It is about saying that women in Saibol were not enemies of the state but citizens deserving protection. The international dimension also cannot be ignored. India, as a democracy, is watched for how it handles human rights in its conflict regions. Reports of women injured by rocket launchers during protests tarnish that image. If the judiciary is seen as providing a channel for accountability, it strengthens India's claim of rule of law governance. If, however, the petition is dismissed or endlessly delayed, it feeds into a narrative of impunity that international rights groups will amplify. As the October 17th hearing approaches, much will depend on how the union and state governments frame their counter-affidavits. Will they deny the use of heavy weaponry altogether, or will they justify it as operational necessity? Will they acknowledge injuries to protesters, or claim they were fabricated? The answers will determine the direction of the case. At the same time, the broader conflict in Manipur continues. Armed clashes, ambushes, and civilian displacements remain weekly realities. The petition thus represents not an isolated grievance, but one thread in the larger fabric of state-citizen conflict. For the Kuki women of Saibol, it is a search for justice in a landscape of violence. For the judiciary, it is a test of courage and balance. For the governments, it is a chance either to accept accountability or to deepen the chasm of mistrust. The outcome of this case could resonate far beyond the courtroom. If successful, it may empower other victims of state excesses in Manipur and elsewhere to seek legal remedies. If dismissed, it may reinforce despair and the sense that justice cannot be found within Indian institutions. In either scenario, the story of Saibol and its women will not be forgotten. It is now inscribed in the legal and political history of Manipur, especially to the Kuki people in their own dominated territory, awaiting its verdict. Thank you for watching. Please do share this video and also don't forget to subscribe ZalengamMedia.
ai poye basajan kana ki hai te pha de tu hi in hoi sa pha di poi bin chang jong le bin jong tu la ki mi ta poye ko suwa mi khai pi yang jong tin ai ki ku tai ai le ime o se he apai sangen he e wa ni ki su se ki ina un jang kon da bai kon thai lo sangin pathian de lo la ma hin ko ai man ki wa sa bai ki azipa kan sai do ta koi ma long hin ku ji chanu sa pate ngen sa hi win azipa volunteer hai ding ba fel zo nam ding ama in la nga nuwa dan dan hin ku mang loi ta cho iga do jong hi sa pai na phatai ne che ki ji ju ga do lo di so ga do lo di na ji pan na so pi na cha na nau ga do wa ba fel zo na ti ale na ni na bo da dam poi na cha te ne na ini in sunga na tiang fam tu jeng na ba ding le mai san na sem ding no te di di lai mo na sa me ti le na ti go ding ne le sa ba na le kun na sei tiang na pum ding ba fa zona pa ho na su voi lo ding igen thai da ne gen thai da hu zo ai ba iki man cha da ni ka da ki da no so im kin no se ne ya no ke ho ibo ko khal na tu tung ga dong hi ni khăn tiền lệ ai lâu lâu không sổ đỏ đây hả bây giờ chú nó mình hỏi cái gì thêm một ngày gì tôi ai thì lim hỏi xe rong ngày con cái xiên rong xe rong ngày bồi cái bò đừng là khó bèn ta chú cái gì đừng là khó bèn ta chú nó mình hỏi cái kín đừng bèn tàu chú tao nó cái thua phải đi làm gì hả cái bò điều tao là bồi lâu lại mà bò lâu đừng tay bạch thiên tôi đi chơi là cái hình bò hiến tu ni sana dam na ne bi a hi le ken bi dinga tu ni sana he kazat kanam amang tha ding ko ni ken ka tha be be ding ham kai ko tha kai nom boy si se na nga ding ne tu ya pan na aboy be awa hi le tu la ya he ku ki cha te la he thal atom lo sa wang ti ban lo he ya chu tu a hi koi ma cha atem akut mola ki tiap ni ka lo ding direct suốt hun thì bỏ đến tay rồi, tiếng Anh sao chạy được hết, nãy sáng lên họ bỏ nôm trong lệ, phát đi cha phát hiện, hậu miên muốn nhà lệ, nãy tí là nó chỗ thằng lệ sang nó xây lệ sang thôi, cắm xuống phát đi chăm bỏ tận, chúng ta bảo hiện phát đi cái bồi, bỏ lâu đến tay tiền mà vậy, đi nãy nó nuốt cái họ, thì à chú, họ hi, missionary đi mà, phát hiện nên mình ai in xí mọi người. Asalnya numi yang bona iho semua hubi ngahe ilai gil gawe he hijira to gete hasana to zole akak masapian tuminu hilohan ilai na pian tuminu hilohan gen sunga boy jang le akak masapian minu he minu haliza ai sunga amo bona ki hatta lo wala na pidu hete lo hoto minu ai poye ya ila do he di tuna minu ki di tu ave lo le maner he in sengalang tu pati jane ngai ya ini o se abai hom to ngai asal lo ya pat na pat he ya chu apa cha de in cha in tian na dinga sim ngai ye ki go na ngai ye mo mi no hi pu ve tu tung gal dong sma mi no hu se hi pa sa ta ba emergency ta bang hi he ho he cha de ki da su se to ding le pat ata na ding se do ding le nem singa mu ji pha tu ding le cha te gil kel na lo dinga ani cha ding si tu ding gamga se ne sa ding ai ki bot so kai de he ino so kai na wa ipidinga mi gamga chemical hung ho sum thoi pai thoi ila ding ai ki so tin na lai he imi ni wa dan dan he mi no ho he kai wang pung na to na ding ka nei jong ne khana he prime ni le thum kap to jong le pung khat ka be na pung khat kuzin ka ding pung khat on jong le na ka to so ka won ka ki su sa min ai nun san so anung dang ai so hitia ki yum so ke ngai so ai na azipa kan ane ko ama ko na he na verbal ding ada ha ding nom sa ta luma ai lo ba hele to ding tham ding hele wa fan se ge min yo ko mai so hi to to min hi lo ki so min pan mun te lo ki so min ta Facebook nga paala la ki ta itu nga la ya ban ki balo ipinu pi do ma pi nga Facebook do nga ahoy hoy na ki ta fang le le he จะจุดอาคาขัดตัวหม้อเม็ดนี่น่าเรื่องในสิ่งที่มากระซิบปากกะลากระเดียมคุยอามุขละหัวอามุขหัวบางส่วนอามุขไอ้ตาหน้าอามุขละหัวแบบทั้งสิ้นลำบากในสิ่งที่มาอิซิกันหาคุยอิซิก็จะรู้ว่าฮิเล่เฟซบุ๊กตรงมาปาลาละอันนั้นเราหน้าสิ่งไหนก็คิดอะไรเลยอะไรถ้าที่กินมือตัวไหนดวงไงสิคุมซ้ำงานคุมซ้ำเลี้ยบัดมวยลำเสียจนเฟซบุ๊กงานยิ้มตาดงนู้นแต่งตัวเนี่ยปนายบอกตาเราดิอาเจจูอีวันลงแมวหน้าสายบุกมาสังวายจะช่วยมูดิวเหรอยาจูเจขันเจจะให้ตัวนี้โคตรมาอีกเสียเฟียวมาเนี่ยอีนี่กำลังตาโจนุ่มหัวหิกันหิ้งพะโลเอสาวหิอัตตาเบะเบะโจกันหิ้งพะโลหิโบชเนี่ยภาษาโลพัดตันฮีจุคำปาเจียงจังจูจุคำหัวโจแล้วนั่นก็จุงตัวหลับยันมันนั่นเตะลุงทิพย์นี่ตาเห็นข้อมันในโบชอีก็เส้นเทนนิสภาษาโจเสียข้าวสุดตะบังกันหิ้งพะโลสามโจเสียเนี่ยกำหัวตะบังก็หิโบชหัวหิอินัมสงว่าเหตุที่เราโจเสียไม่อยากคนอีจ้าตาหินุ่มหัวหิเลยยาจูนุ่มหัวหิ transformer ขนาดอีก็ยังมี transformer ขัดก็เหตุอินเดียนุ่งจิตุงดอกเราเสียจูเหตุอินซุงจูก็เหตุ transformer ก็เหตุยันนี่ไงตัวไง transformer aku na like the home selection ตัวนี้ไอ้เราหิพิมพ์ตามบางทีบางทีบางทีตัวน่าเล็บปวดนุ่มเลี้ยหัวคนนู้เดียบตาโจจูที่จะคุยหัวว่าที่มีโรคพิษเมียนั่นคริสเตียนหัวบอลถึงคริสเตียนชาติที่บอกว่าจะว่าที่กำสุงว่าที่ลุงวันนั่นแหละที่ปานนั้นอุ้มเทตลกว่าโฟสันเงินเงินไปเห็นอีปุ้ยมาได้ไปสังเงินเงินไอ้ก้อยปีเป้าที่อีตัวมังดิ่งตาให้ละตัวนี้นี่กว่าที่อีพัดโลเจอแล้วประเทศเฮ็ดโลเจออีปุ้ยปันนุ่งใจปาตีอาประเทศนี้อันนั้นเฮ็ดโดยหินหน้าอาประเทศดีตาป้าหินอันนั้นก็เฮ็ดโดยเทโลไอ้ว่าหินสุสานนี่ตาอันนั้นปล่อยว่าดัมมอลอันนั้นดัมเที่ยวโจลูและไอ้ hospital อันนั้นจุดโลใช่ไหมตัวนี้เนี่ยความกระเทียมดีได้กี่เหตุโดนโน้ว่าที่นี่อาจจะให้บอลห้ามกระตีน้องคริสเตียนหันกับบอลโลกิจตัวนี้เนี่ยความคริสเตียนมีปีหัวกับบอลหัวมีน้องคริสเตียนหันกี่ดำได้ใส่ตะหุ่นละน้ำสมัยลูกสาวเราได้ฮีคริสเตียนไม่หัวโจอาทิตย์จุดใจใจรู้ไหมครับตัวฮีกูกินจะรู้ตรงคอยมันดีตาลูกคริสเตียนไม่หัวโจอีเมย์เราตัวให้ไล่ไปว่าตัวนี้นี่ไปกำสมุทิมามุนดังจงเสียงอินอีกพลังดอกจงเลยไปตามเดี๋ยวจุนนู้เตะหัวจะคุยเผาเตะตัวนี้หินบ้านเตะวางกันที่ไปกับลุงแดกก็เสียเห็นขัดแย้งกันเสียปีแต่เดียวเหรอฮิจิเจ็บปีเลยว่าฮิจิแห่ทิ้งเป็นตาแห่ทิ้งก็เสียเป็นตาที่เราเสียตึ้งกำสงเอ็นนั่นโซ่ที่เหรออาลุงเด็กขัดสงามุนขัดจาลับเอ็นนั่งมุนอะไรตีนักเกียรติงาเจที่อาจูนั่งจะอากำสงเล่นน้ำสงเล่นที่นั่นแหละมันฐานะอมสังมาจูน้องมาจูนักสู้มังก็ตัวหูไปจะเห็นน้องวันก็มาในลูกสังมาจูหิวปิ้งหอมสงสายปีลูกไปจะเห็นเจ้าชนนู้เตะหอมจริงเท่ได้เห็นคนมันงาเจอีที่โลน่าจะเสียตัวนี้เนี่ยไปลำกายหอมคนมาสังอีเสียหินเสียแบบไหนตำโซ่ใจเดียวลำกายกูก็จูสักเก็ตฟ้าจะอุ้มตาบอดอีบอนตาวินอามาเลนันอีกคนเดียวลำจูกาดมุเตะได้มาพัดจังชุดันเตะ